To our friend Tom, I dedicate this talk today. And as I said, we're still in the middle of this great pandemic. We're going to talk about the controversies and Logomachies, and specifically one big controversy that's going on right now. But first, two things that I'm very concerned about. The first one being that my tolerance for idiots is extremely low today. And believe me, that is a cause for great concern on my part. And the reason for that concern is shown here in this graph. Can you see the graph okay?
Yes, we can. Thank
Okay.
you.
So the graph shows you COVID-19 mortality, the percent mortality versus age. Excuse me. And I am in this age range, as you know. So my chances of dying if I get COVID are 20 to 30%. And some of you are in this age group. I know most of you are youngsters, but okay, some are in this age group. Now, as you see, the mortality goes down precipitously and is very low. Those under age 50 are at 2%, and as we talk about teenagers, it goes even further down. Now, the problem is that people in this age range are not concerned about mortality because it's so low. And many of them are getting asymptomatic disease. And thus they think that they can get away with no masks, particularly the teenagers. And this is becoming a problem at the universities. So, you know, I think that they're idiots. They're threatening my life. So there's a choice, you know, the IQ of those who choose to not wear masks. A choice can be made between these ratings. I choose the first rating at the top. Okay, changing a little bit here, let's go to logomachy and what that means. It's an argument or debate marked by reckless or incorrect use of words, a meaningless battle of words. And we find a lot of that going on, excuse me, in our media today, but also in all sorts of debates between make-believe scientists and talking heads and so on. And some of that has happened around an event surrounding the very important phase 3, 30,000 patient COVID vaccine trial being carried out by Oxford AstraZeneca. Around the 6th of this month, AstraZeneca, the executive director and others announced that there had been a serious adverse event in one patient in this trial. And all of the comments around that have to do with ignorance of the study process and the adverse event itself. So let's try to clarify those points, since the media has been unable to do that. They've just thrown in more confusion. What is a randomized clinical trial? It means that subjects coming into the study are randomized. So in a random way, they are assigned to either vaccine or to placebo. And in this particular study, they intend to enter 30,000 subjects, and the randomization is 2 to 1. So 20,000 to vaccine, 10,000 to placebo. The study is also blinded. That means that once and even before subjects are randomized, the subject, the patient, the individual entering the study does not know if he or she is going to get vaccine or placebo. The physician administering the vaccine or placebo does not know either. The company likewise is blinded, and then there is a monitoring board, a data safety monitoring board that looks for the safety of all of the subjects entered into the study. Then the FDA has a number of regulations around safety for these studies. Let's go into some of them. First, let's define serious unexpected adverse events, and this is per FDA regulations and requirements. Serious is an event that results in death, life-threatening adverse event, hospitalization, or significant incapacity. It's unexpected if it's not listed in the investigator's brochure or the investigational plan. Now, the Data Safety Monitoring Board is a group of third-party individuals that look for the safety of subjects entered on this study. And it's composed of clinicians, at least one biostatistician. It may include, but not necessarily, a medical ethicist and other specialists. The recommendations of this Data Safety Monitoring Board are not binding. They are recommendations. Ultimately, it's the sponsor who is responsible in the case of an adverse event for assigning relatedness to the vaccine or not. In this case, one patient, a 37-year-old lady, developed transverse myelitis. Transverse myelitis is an inflammation of the spinal cord. In the US, about 1,400 cases are reported yearly. So it's a very unusual, not frequent at all, kind of adverse event or event. Now, as you see from this slide, there are numerous causes that can be associated to transverse myelitis. And there is a very important study that everybody should know, and apparently even the NIH is not aware of this study, in 2016. And this was an analysis of a very large database. In fact, they looked at 64 million vaccinations. Here in the US, this was a study conducted by the Kaiser system and the CDC. And they looked in this 64 million vaccinations at 28 different vaccines. And the incidence of transverse myelitis was less than 1 in 1 million. Less than 1 in 1 million. Their conclusion is it's not related. And this is how it happens. Okay, the adverse event occurs. And if it occurs in the group that's receiving the vaccine, then it is reportable to the regulatory agencies. In which case, the clinician who's taking care of that subject writes a report and hands it in to the sponsor, that is, in this case, AstraZeneca. The sponsor has the option of consulting with the Data Safety Monitoring Board or not. It's not obligatory, but they usually do. That's what the Data Safety Monitoring Board is there for. And as I said, it's an independent third-party group of specialists. They issue a recommendation to the sponsor. The sponsor then has 15 days to report that to the FDA. The sponsor is not obliged to accept the recommendations of the DSMB, but they usually do. It's a good group of specialists. They're going to come up with a good recommendation. And then the FDA reviews everything and files the report. Maybe no action is needed. In this case, the sponsor took an action that was not necessary, but for safety concern, they decided to pause the study and to reinitiate it once the Data Safety Monitoring Board and themselves, the sponsor, decided that it was related or not. In this case, they decided that it was not related and that it was safe to continue the study. However, the FDA is still reviewing the study. So in the US, they have not restarted that study. Everyone else has taken the recommendations of the DSMB. Everyone else has taken the action that regulatory agencies in the UK and Europe have taken. The study has been restarted in Brazil, South Africa, India, and the UK. And here we are with the FDA holding us up. If the adverse event occurred in the group of subjects receiving placebo, then it's not reportable. It's important to know that because what's going to happen in this study and in all other studies that are ongoing by other companies like Pfizer, Moderna, and others, you have to know that they're only going to report and make known while the study is ongoing those adverse events that are reportable. Therefore, giving the impression that all of the adverse events are occurring in the vaccine arm because they're reportable. However, in the placebo, they're not reportable. And let me tell you, accidents, heart attacks, infections, pneumonias, etc., strokes are going to happen in the placebo arm, just like they're going to happen in the vaccine arm, but they're not reportable, so you're not going to know about them. So be very careful when you hear about these adverse events, because it's not until the end of the study that the entire data will be unblinded, analyzed, and then you'll know how many adverse events occurred in the vaccine arm and how many events occurred in the placebo arm. And many times it's just as many. And many times they're very similar. Now, some good news. Despite the study pause, AstraZeneca believes that the COVID-19 vaccine could be ready this year. Pfizer has already entered their 30,000 subjects, so they're just waiting for events to occur, either with vaccine or with placebo. And they're going to analyze for how many subjects develop COVID-19. And if the vaccine is protected, then those that have not received the vaccine will be developing COVID, perhaps at some point, and those in the vaccine arm will be protected. Some interim analyses are expected, and we'll be hearing about those pretty soon, I hope. Moderna has a similar trial. They have already entered 26,000 subjects, so they're close to the end of entering studies, in terms of entering studies. And now everything depends on the regulatory people. And usually they're slow, bureaucratic. They're under great pressure. We'll see what they do this time. And I am sure that you agree with me that hope springs eternal. Thank you.